He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got everybody here in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
I will throw this league under the bus and make sure it fails if you give me an NFL franchise. And he buys this team, and everyone thinks he's a savior, and he spends money. He's putting money into this team. He signs a of guys from the NFL. He signs chief safety Gary Barbaro. He signs Brian Sipe, former NFL MVP quarterback from the Cleveland Browns. He makes an offer for Lawrence Taylor, the Giants linebacker, and actually signs him to a futures contract, like all kinds of stuff. And people are like, wow, 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 this is amazing. This is great. He's putting money in. This is amazing. This is great. Attention. But on the side, one day, Donald Trump calls the NFL commissioner, Pete Rozelle, and he says, would you be willing to meet me in private to talk? And Pete Rozelle knows who Donald Trump is. He knows his reputation as kind of a scumbag, but he's like, yeah, of course, because Donald Trump owned a team in the rival league. And Donald Trump rents out a suite at the Pierre Hotel. And there are three people at this meeting. There's Pete Rozelle, the NFL commissioner. There's Donald Trump, owner of the New Jersey Generals, and one other guy who I interviewed for my book. I wrote a book about the USFL called Football for a Buck. And I interviewed the third guy at the meeting. And this meeting was never discussed before. And here's what happened. Donald Trump meets with Pete Rozelle. Pete Rozelle says, what do you want? Why am I here? Donald Trump says, I want an NFL franchise. I want my team in the NFL. And Pete Rozelle says, well, that's not going to happen. And Donald Trump says, not in these exact words, but this is the offer he makes. I will throw this league under the bus and make sure it fails if you give me an NFL franchise. And Pete Rozelle is no dummy. He's been around, he's savvy, he's smart. He knows that Donald Trump once made a half-baked bullshit offer to buy the Colts from the Irsay family. He knows Donald Trump's reputation for not paying vendors. He knows Donald Trump's reputation as a sleazebag scumbag full of He says to Donald Trump, as long as I'm involved in the NFL, as long as my heirs are involved in the NFL, you will never have anything to do with this league.
He said he will target and punish those who disagree with him or refuse to bend to his will. He calls these Americans the enemy within and says that he would use the American military to go after American citizens. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Nonpartisan election officials who refuse to cheat by finding a few extra votes for him. Judges who insist on following the law instead of following him. It is for reasons like these that General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Donald Trump's top general, has called Trump, and I quote, fascist to the core.
Foreign countries pay the price of tariffs?
My customers are going to pay for it. So it's going to be passed on.
New angle of the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania is absolutely wild. So the first thing you're going to see in this clip is the guy on Trump's team go to rush to get the photographer. This is right after it happened, by the way. Take a look at this.
He's been shot. Oh, no. Either that or they're covering. We don't know. Either that or they're covering it. We love you. We love you, President Trump. We love you. We love you.
This is unreal.
President Trump. We love you.
Are you serious? So right after there are gunshots fired at a campaign event, Trump's team's first reaction is to go get the photographers, and then they line them up with the camera, and then they lower the flag in the background so they could get their little picture for their campaign event. This couldn't be more obvious. It really couldn't. The question we need to be asking ourselves is who orchestrated this event? Who organized it? Angle of the
Wait.
You know how I know it was staged? Because during an active, attempt, you do not stand him upright and pose for a photo op. You keep him on the ground and you escort out, blocking the body as a shield. I've worked in security for approximately 4 years at Cuvée and at Enclave, 2 very large nightclubs in Chicago. You do not stand him up when they don't know how many possible attackers there are. There could be 2, there could be 10, they don't know. Why would you stand him up and subject him to possible more attacks? Number 2, he had a brief stint at WWE, and in WWE he learned how to use a blade to initiate red stuff, you know what I'm talking about. So anybody who follows WWE, they know that they usually hide a razor on their wrist, they tape it to their wrist, and then when there's a moment when they're not looking, they'll take the razor and they'll just nick their forehead or their ear. There's a vein in your ear right here. If you nick it with the razor, it's going to bleed a lot. So when he was on the ground, I believe that he nicked his ear with the razor. Now you may say, well, what about the person who ended up getting hit behind him? I believe that his team found a degenerate kid and instructed him on what to do, but to intentionally miss. However, this degenerate kid had no experience using a you-know-what, and he accidentally hit the person behind him. But what hit the ear, that was a razor blade that he had attached, and this was pre-arranged. That is my insecurity. You know how I know it?
It's a false flag.
False flag.
Yeah, false flag.
Somebody died and 2 people injured. What do you think about that?
False flag.
False flag.
I thought it was magnificently staged. It was professionally done. It almost looked real.
Wait. Staged by who?
Oh, by Mr. Trump, of course.
I think this whole thing is staged.
You think it was staged?
Yeah.
No.
Please don't.
No.
We're so anti-Trump. I don't even want to.
Was it a bad thing, though? Was it a bad thing? Would you condemn it?
Oh, that he got shot at? Of course.
Yeah, you right.
Of course, you don't do that.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, that's really bad. Yeah, exactly. You don't do that. Was it staged? Probably.
Staged?
Yeah.
Okay, so you think Trump maybe staged a fake assassination for support? Okay. And that resulted in somebody dying and other people being critically injured?
I haven't seen the news today. I'm not here for the news. I haven't seen anything. I'm on vacation.
So you just thought it was fake?
Of course.
It's a false flag.
False flag.
Yeah, false flag.
Fake.
I don't know how it took us until April of 2026 for us to figure this out, but look closely at Trump as he's getting off of Air Force One here. Look at the Secret Service agent who's directly behind him. If you know who that is, you'd be surprised to see him still with Trump after all this time, especially after what happened way back in 2024. Can you tell who that is? Because no one else is pointing this out yet. He is one of the guys who was helping Trump during the assassination attempt way back in July or August of 2024. And so the director was, we don't know this guy's actual name because they have to keep all that private, but the director of the Secret Service was Sean Curran. And people were so upset with him after this happened. They were like, he's definitely getting fired. There's no way. They're going to have to restructure the whole Secret Service after this because he just, he put Trump's life in danger by not covering the whole area very well. But now they've still got the same Secret Service agents working for Trump even to this day. And Trump doesn't mind it at all. So I guess perhaps that means that the whole thing might have been staged
and he was in no real danger in the first place. I don't know how it took us until...
In 3, 2, 1, go! Now let's go! Back up, now let's go! Back up! All the time, we're in contact, making contact! Action! Look. Now let's go! To the left. Back up! All the time, we're in contact, making contact!
You guys have got to check this out. Do you remember when Trump nearly got assassinated and, you know, it basically won him presidency? Well, there is this new angle that's just been released of what you can see the Secret Service moving the photographers into a perfect angle, and then boom, Trump gets shot. But what's even crazier is this angle where you can see the Secret Service guy run off and then wait for it. As you can see, Trump's panicking on the ground. He's just had his ear blown off by an assassination attempt. And then watch, come running in now, perfect on cue with the Secret Service guy. And then at the same time, watch the flag at the top. The flag gets lowered so they can make that perfect shot that got published around the entire world on every media outlet, which essentially got Trump the sympathy votes, and he then went on to win presidency that year. And as you can see here, he is literally still behind the photographers, moving them into the perfect shots. Crazy, isn't it? Like, when you think about it, right? Trump's just been shot. He's in the firing line of the sniper, and yet the Secret Service that are protecting him somehow let him stand back in the same shot where they know that the shooter has got an angle of, and he shouts that famous fight, fight, fight to the world. It's absolutely laughable. And I'm not going to lie, this goes a lot deeper with symbolism and numerology, and I'm going to break this down a lot deeper in the uncensored subscriber section, where we're not going to get flagged for showing you how deep this actually goes, beautiful people. So if you want to support the channel, hit that subscriber button and look out for that.
So, was the president's assassination attempt in Butler faked? When I was on SRT, we trained, I was at headquarters Marine Corps in Arlington, Virginia, and we trained with all federal and local law enforcement agency SWAT teams. And when we trained with the Secret Service, they also put on a show for us, showing how they would do an extraction of the president. They had someone, you know, play the president's part. They surrounded the president, and then they almost violently removed him and brought him to the Suburban, and it happened in seconds. And the one thing that sticks with me from that is one of the agents said, even if the president doesn't want to go, our orders are to remove him anyway, like forcibly. So if there's an active shooter and, you know, the biggest VIP in the country is the one getting shot at, why would you leave him up on the stage for 5 minutes and then have him reappear with blood splatter going the wrong way?
I 100% guarantee that between now and the election, the Trump campaign is going to orchestrate a failed assassination attempt on his life. How do I know that? Well, because that playbook's as old as Methuselah. The guy's already said he was tortured in jail. He's already claimed that FBI agents were cleared to assassinate him when they showed up to Mar-a-Lago to get back the top secret documents he'd been holding on to. They're going to point the finger at President Joe Biden or some other radical left actor organization. Whether people care to acknowledge it, this guy is a marketing and psychological genius. If I were in his position, that's exactly what I'd do. And if I thought of it, You think the fascist bootlickers who are sitting in, rooms all day trying to figure out how to get this guy back into the White House haven't figured it out? Pay attention. Don't be fooled.
When I made that video on July 2nd, 2024, 11 days before it actually happened, I didn't really have an audience on social media other than friends and family. So I did get random messages from a few folks who were like, damn, dude, you called it. But seriously, it was the easiest prediction I've ever made. How did I know? Pretty easy, really. First, understand the nature of the man and all of his homies. But let's rewind to July 2024. Biden is still officially in the race. He did not drop out until the end of July. Biden is down on Trump in the polls, but improving. He's catching up, and Trump and his campaign know they need to do something to improve his poll numbers that have remained relatively flat. And contrary to popular belief, it was not just the disastrous debate with Trump that had Biden drop out of the race. It was actually a combination of the fallout from that debate and Trump's improved poll numbers following the incident in Butler, Pennsylvania. And absolutely nothing I've ever seen regarding the supposed attempt on Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania leads me to believe anything other than it was staged. From the miraculously healed ear to the fact that the shooter, Thomas Crooks, was a known Trump supporter and was in a BlackRock ad 2 years prior to this incident, BlackRock being a global investment firm with over $12 trillion in assets under management whose CEO supports Donald Trump, to the Secret Service behavior. Let's say it's your first day on the Secret Service and you've gone through a brief orientation and just filled out your payroll paperwork. You know your one damn job is to protect your asset under any and all circumstances, to stay on top of them, to protect them, or to get them out of harm's way. But instead, multiple Secret Service agents allowed Donald Trump to dictate what was going to happen, stand up with his head exposed while there is still an active shooter, and pump his fist for a photo op? Nah. All that shit is sketch. And what could possibly be easier and better than an attempt on your life you know for sure you're going to survive, to boost your approval with a bunch of people who believe in the ultimate battle between good and evil, and that God just saved you so that you can save this country. When we finally do get power back, we've got a ton of investigations to make happen, but this Machiavellian charade definitely needs to be one of them.
I 100% guarantee that
Here's why I know the attempt on Trump's life in 2024 was fake. And not just because he has two full-ass ears. If there was truly an attempt made on Trump's life, he would never, ever stop talking about it. Anytime Trump would be visible in public, he would never hesitate to bring it up.
You know, the time they made the attempt on my life, it's very serious, but
he would never stop talking about it. We wouldn't have a press conference. We wouldn't have a rally. We wouldn't have any kind of debate without him bringing it up. And he doesn't bring it up. He brings up Charlie Kirk's assassination more than his own. Most Americans can't even name the perpetrator. Think about the last attempts in the 20th century. John Hinckley, Lee Harvey Oswald, and whoever this guy was. Not to mention he immediately posed. You're telling me that the guy who shit himself in the Oval Office had the wherewithal to pose? It just sucks that some of us are now just finding out that this is all fake.
told you none of it was accidental in the first night? What if I told you none of it was accidental in the first night?
You know the name of the guy who shot Donald Trump? Can you tell me any fact about him at all? I feel like we never learned anything about this guy. Have you recognized this? I mean, it's really odd. It's like nobody looked into him or something. I mean, over 70 years later, I can remember the name Lee Harvey Oswald. Over 150 years later, I can remember the name John Wilkes Booth, but I can't tell you the name of the guy who shot Donald Trump last year. Why is that?
I know the attempt on Trump's life in 2024 was fake. And not just because he has 2 full-ass ears. If there was truly an attempt made on Trump's life, he would never, ever stop talking about it. Anytime Trump would be visible in public, he would never hesitate to bring it up.
You know, the time they made the attempt on my life, it's very serious, but
he would never stop talking about it. We wouldn't have a press conference. We wouldn't have a rally. We wouldn't have any kind of debate without him bringing it up. And he doesn't bring it up. He brings up Charlie Kirk's assassination more than his own. Most Americans can't even name the perpetrator. Think about the last attempts in the 20th century. John Hinckley, Lee Harvey Oswald, and whoever this guy was. Not to mention he immediately posed. You're telling me that the guy who shit himself in the Oval Office had the wherewithal to pose? It just sucks that some of us are now just finding out that this is all fake.
Trump didn't survive an assassination attempt. He survived a publicity stunt, and I can prove it. He said a bullet went through his ear. Let's be clear, a 5.56 NATO round fired from 130 yards away travels at 3,000 feet per second. That would shred flesh, fracture bone, and leave a crater. But there's no hole, no swelling, no bandage, just a light scratch. Just ask any trauma doctor. This isn't survivable without real damage. The shooter was 130 yards away, and for that rifle, that's the perfect range. US Army standards expect near pinpoint accuracy from 300 yards away. He had elevation, line of sight, and time, and yet only 1 fatality, 1 ear graze, and no Secret Service reaction for 5 full seconds. This wasn't a failed assassination. This was a successful setup. Trump didn't duck, he didn't run. Instead, he faced the camera, raised his fist, and yelled fight like he was on WrestleMania. That's not instinct, that's direction. Real assassination attempts create chaos. You can watch Reagan's, Ford's, or even JFK's. Trump's was rehearsed. Now let's talk data. Before the shooting, Trump was tanking in the polls, especially with independents, coming in at around 40%. But after the shooting, he jumped up over 50%. And in some swing states, he made double-digit gains overnight. That's not coincidence. That's narrative control. He needed a reset, and this gave him the hero arc that he couldn't earn on his own record. Fake attempts like this aren't anything new. In 1933, Hitler staged the Reichstag fire, blamed communists, and used it to seize emergency powers. It worked. In 1999, Putin staged apartment bombings to justify the war in Chechnya, and his approval ratings doubled overnight. Authoritarians manufacture attacks to paint themselves as the victim. It rallies their base, silences critics, and justifies authoritarian.
Project 2025 is here. Democrats talked in July about how Trump's agenda was this Project 2025 agenda, which was written by many people in his first administration. Now we're seeing Project 2025 being implemented in real time in front of our very eyes. A memo was sent to federal agencies. It asked to pause almost all of the federal government spending, except Medicare and Medicaid. This is not by any stretch of the imagination normal. This is not how the OMB is supposed to work. Congress is supposed to control the federal government's spending. The executive branch, the president, is not. This is part of the Project 2025 agenda to take power away from Congress and give it to the president. The person who is about to get approved by the Senate, if the Senate votes for him, a guy called Ross Vaught, was the director of the OMB under Trump the first time. He's very involved in Project 2025. He was involved in the writing of it. He worked for the Heritage Foundation. If he's approved to Trump's cabinet, he will become the director, and they will use federal money that's already been approved by Congress as a sort of carrot and stick to running the rest of the federal government. This is not how it's supposed to work. And in fact, there's a law called the Impoundment Act, which was put into place after Richard Nixon to avoid the president trying to use federal money this way. And there will be a lot of consequences that we can't even see yet that will happen because of this federal spending freeze, because it's really largely across the board and it affects a lot of different agencies that we don't even think of as affecting our daily lives will affect our daily lives.
I hope the general public understands how inherently dishonest the press in this country is.
As a member of the press, let me try to clear up some of the things which you say are untrue. My bankers and I worked out a terrific deal that allows me to come out stronger than ever. I see the deal as a great victory. Being on the verge of bankruptcy, being bailed out by the banks,
Well, you don't have to say on the
skating on thin ice and almost drowning, that's a businessman to be admired.
You say on the verge of bankruptcy, Barbara, and you talk on the verge, and you listen to what people are saying.
I talk to your bankers.
Well, that's fine. And what do they say? I mean, you know, depending on which banker you're talking to, what do they say? Well, I don't know what the bankers have said. The plaza's a very valuable property. Everybody told me, oh, you paid too much, you paid too much. Now they're all saying what a great deal he made on the plaza.
And let me put it very plainly. If we Republicans choose Donald Trump as our nominee, the prospects for a safe and prosperous future are greatly diminished. Let me explain why I say that. First, on the economy. If Donald Trump's plans were ever implemented, the country would sink into prolonged recession. A few examples. His proposed 35% tariff-like penalties would instigate a trade war, and that would raise prices for consumers, kill our export jobs, and lead entrepreneurs and businesses of all stripes to flee America. His tax plan, in combination with his refusal to reform entitlements and to honestly address spending, would balloon the deficit and the national debt. So even though Donald Trump has offered very few specific economic plans, what little he has said is enough to know that he would be very bad for American workers and for American families. But you say, wait. Isn't he a huge business success? Doesn't he know what he's talking about? No, he isn't. And no, he doesn't. Look, his bankruptcies have crushed small businesses and the men and women who work for them. He inherited his business. He didn't create it. And whatever happened to Trump Airlines? How about Trump University? And then there's Trump Magazine, and Trump Vodka, and Trump Steaks, and Trump Mortgage. A business genius he is not.
Trump's repeated comments about annexing Canada and his actions reveal a sociopathy that was described in detail in the 2017 book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. In it, 27 psychiatrists and mental health professionals made it clear that Trump is a sociopath who poses a threat not just to the U.S., but to the entire world. Some of the assessments of Trump's personality in the book include the following, and mind you, these are assessments made by professionals who work in the area of mental health. Trump is an impulsive, immature, incompetent person who, when in the position of ultimate power, would easily slide into the role of tyrant. His sociopathic characteristics are undeniable and present a profound threat to democracy. He is profoundly an evil man exhibiting malignant narcissism. And if left unchecked, his pathological narcissism could lead to World War III.
It's inauguration weekend here in D.C. I'm going to take you on a little run and show you what it looks like right now.
Drill, baby, drill.
Look at this.
Yes, I used to be a transgender woman. Somebody back there. You need to love God.
So that was the People's March at the Lincoln Memorial. Now I'm headed to the White House to go see what's going on there. So that's Mike Lindell. He's one of Trump's friends. He's the My Pillow guys. You probably know him. Just hanging out outside of the White House.
That's there. We can't stay there forever.
On the National Mall, they had to break down all the seats now that the inauguration has moved inside. I made it to the Capitol. This is as close as you can get. Obviously, it's barricaded all the way around. Lots of people traveled here from out of town to see inauguration. They are getting interviewed to see how they feel about it being completely moved from outdoors to indoors.
Locations.
to get Donald Trump in that White House.
The problem with the immigration debate is that one can create a lot of fear. They're coming after you. But it's a nation that is willing to accept the refugee or the harmed or the frightened. To me, is a great nation, and we are a great nation. Please put aside all the harsh rhetoric about immigration. Please put aside trying to score political points on either side. I hope I can help set a tone that is more respectful about the immigrant, which may lead to reform of the system.
We're doing two things. We're creating a whole society of really honorable, decent, family-loving people that are in violation of the law, and secondly, we're exacerbating relations with Mexico. But I don't want to see a whole, if they're living here, I don't want to see a whole thing of 6- and 8-year-old kids being made, you know, one totally uneducated and made to feel that they're living with outside the law. Let's address ourselves to the fundamentals. These are good people, strong people. Part of my family is a Mexican.
We're talking about putting up a fence. Why don't we work out some recognition of our mutual problems, make it possible for them to come here legally with a work permit, and then while they're working and earning here, they pay taxes here. And when they want to go back, they can go back, and they can cross and open the border both ways by understanding their problems. This is the only safety valve right now they have with that unemployment that probably keeps the lid from blowing off down there.
What's interesting about our country, if you study history, is that there are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and its evil twin protectionism, and its evil triplet nativism. So if you study the 20s, for example, there was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? Well, what happened in Europe mattered eventually because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. In other words, let's throw up barriers. And there was an immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. And my point to you is we've been through this kind of period of isolationism, protectionism, nativism. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period. I hope that these isms pass, which would then allow for a more orderly look at immigration policy. Rational immigration policy eventually passed.
We have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
If you are furious about the ICE raids that are happening right now, keep scrolling. This video isn't for you. This video is for the people who are celebrating the ICE raids, because we need to talk. Hi, I'm Delara. I'm undocumented. I have lived in the US since I was 5 years old, and I have a law degree from one of the best schools in the United States. And I want to start by giving you the benefit of the doubt. You want to feel safe. Maybe you were told a story about how undocumented immigrants are dangerous. Maybe you've heard a story about how they are stealing your resources. Maybe you heard a story about how ICE is the hero. But there's a couple of things I just want you to make sure that you know in case you didn't. The first thing that is really important for you to understand is that native-born Americans commit crimes at a higher rate than immigrants. This is not an opinion, it's not a take, it's just data. Even though it's well documented, you don't even have to be that smart to understand. When you commit a crime, you have way less to lose than I do. Because if you commit a crime, maybe you get fined, maybe you spend some time in jail. If an undocumented person commits a crime, they face deportation and being ripped away from their family. The stakes are completely different. So we are careful in a way that you don't have to be. In fact, communities with a higher immigrant population experience lower crime rates. Go figure. Okay, but you might also think that undocumented immigrants are draining the system. And again, you have been lied to, and I'll explain why in a second. But first, it's really important for you to know that undocumented immigrants pay billions of dollars in taxes every year, including Social Security, which we do not get access to. And on top of that, immigrants are 80% more likely to start a business than native-born Americans. And over $500 million US startups were founded by immigrants or their kids. So no, we're not draining the system, we're building it. So why are you being told these stories about how immigrants are a threat to your safety and your livelihood? That's a good question, and there's a good answer. And it's because fear is profitable. When you're afraid, you're easier to control. Because if you are busy blaming immigrants for your problems, you're not looking up at the people who actually make housing unaffordable. You're not asking, why does an ER visit cost more than my car? Why are billionaires paying less in taxes than my local school teacher? Why did my landlord raise my rent $400 to fix nothing? Because scapegoating immigrants is the oldest trick in the political playbook, and unfortunately it still works. But it doesn't have to work on you. If you've made it this far, maybe you're not as heartless as people think you are. Maybe you're just waking up. Maybe you were misinformed. And maybe now you're starting to get it. By the way, solidarity would look really good on you. It's not too late to change your mind.
I want to be really clear about where we're at because I think it's important. Yesterday, before the Supreme Court, the Trump administration argued that they have the right to arrest any person in the United States, citizen or not, for any reason that they deem acceptable and ship them to a foreign jail in any country that they'd like for any amount of time without due process. That is what they are arguing they have the right to do. And on top of all of that, they're also arguing that the U.S. court system has no power to stop them from doing any of this. They are pushing to arrest anyone they want for any reason that they want and send them anywhere that they want for any amount of time that they want without any court system being involved. That should terrify anybody and everybody because it doesn't matter anymore what the law is. They can arrest you for simply writing an opinion piece, as they did with Ramisa Ozturk. They can arrest you for liking an Instagram post. They can arrest you for having tattoos that they don't like. And ship you overnight to a foreign fucking labor camp. That is where we are at. That is what they are trying to do.
And now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
I need us all to understand something. Make America Healthy Again has never been about making America healthy. It's a political slogan, a Trojan horse used to dismantle the very agencies that help to protect public health. It was outlined explicitly in Project 2025, and it's being carried out with public support under the illusion of caring about health. The Republican Party has historically not been strong on health, and they've actively fought against evidence-based public health measures. Things like healthcare access, housing assistance, nutrition programs, school meal improvements, and even smoking laws.
Over the summer in an interview, you said, quote, "There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective." Do you still believe that?
I never said that.
So stop me. We have the clip. Please play the clip.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
For you, Congressman, as a veteran, what is your reaction to Trump's plans for a military parade next month, which will reportedly include 28 Abrams tanks, 6,700 soldiers, 50 helicopters, 34 horses, 2 mules, and a dog? That's what it says. But he is having his military parade for his birthday.
Well, it's, he's a draft dodger. It's his first military thing that he really gets to do. But I think, obviously, he likes Putin. He worships Kim Jong-un. He wants to be like that. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be a dictator like those guys, and they have big military parades.
I mean, it just seems to me like if we were taking seriously the idea that our government spends too much money, that Doge comes in there and says, okay, we need to cut 80,000 jobs from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we're going to get rid of USAID, and we're going to do this and do that. I mean, this seems like it's unnecessary.
You can help.
Marco Rubio really doesn't want you to see this video that proves MAGA is lying when they say the United States doesn't owe Ukraine anything. Definitely don't repost it, and definitely don't watch it till the very end.
When the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's third largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States and Russia. They said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense. And so Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, 20 years later, one of the countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. We will protect you. What kind of lesson do you think this instance sends to them? I think the message this is sending to many nations around the world is, Perhaps we can no longer count on the security promises made by the free world.
I would have wiped the floor with the guys that weren't loyal, which I will now do, which is great. You know, I love getting even with people, but I will. I
Slow
will
up.
wipe.
You love getting even.
Oh, absolutely. You don't believe in the eye for the eye. You do.
No.
I know you well enough. I think you do. But anyway, but
tell me. I mean, you're going to get even with some people.
Yeah, I know. If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that were disloyal to me. I mean, I had a group of people that were disloyal.
But how do you define disloyalty?
They didn't come to my aid.
Well, what did they do? They turned their back on you?
No, but they didn't do small things that would have helped. You see, I'm so loyal to people, and maybe I'm loyal to a fault, but I'm so loyal to people that when somebody's slightly disloyal to me, I look upon it as a great act of horror.
Scale is staggering. President Trump and his family are making hundreds of millions, potentially billions of dollars, as Trump and his administration take official actions that benefit contributors and investors. Just this week, we learned of pardons to tax cheats, including a man whose pardon was granted weeks after his mother attended a $1 million head fundraiser with the president. The Trump Media and Technology Group raised nearly $2.5 billion from 50 institutional investors whose identities have not been disclosed. The SEC dropped its lawsuit against the cryptocurrency firm Binance days after Binance began listing the cryptocurrency launched by World Liberty Financial, the crypto firm started by Trump's family. This unprecedented money-making by a sitting president and his family, summarized by critics like The Atlantic's David Frum. Nothing like this has been attempted or even imagined in the history of the American presidency, he writes. Throw away the history books, discard feeble comparisons to scandals of the past. There is no analogy with any previous action by any past president. The brazenness of the self-enrichment resembles nothing seen in any earlier White House. This is American corruption on the scale of a post-Soviet republic or a post-colonial African dictatorship. That's where we begin this week.
Back to Trump golf courses. In addition to the $5 billion Qatari real estate deal, the Trump Organization is also partnering with a Saudi firm on a $1 billion Trump-branded hotel and tower in Dubai. The property's website, this is unbelievable. The property's website, this is a Trump-financed property along with a Saudi investment fund, offers free 10-year golden visas to the United States, hinting at the opportunity for investors in Trump's property to buy residency in the United States and a pathway to citizenship. For the UAE, the price is somewhere north of $2 billion. MGX, an investment firm backed by the Emirati government at this conference, announced that they had looked at all the crypto companies in the world that they could partner with to invest $2 billion in the crypto exchange Binance. And they selected, wait for it, drum roll, the company run by the sons of the President of the United States and the U.S. Middle East envoy. $2 billion. The White House is open for business. And the Trump family is proudly advertising to the world where to send the check. They aren't trying to hide it. A $400 million luxury plane gifted to the President of the United States right as he is going over to negotiate potentially sensitive security arrangements with the Gulf countries. Every American, every Republican, every supposed national security advocate in the Senate should be outraged by this.
You guys hear somebody talking crap about Trump getting the gifted plane? Just remind them. Statue of Liberty was a gift from France. Why do we accept that?
Oh, damn, Chad. You really got us with that one. I fear that trying to explain this to this particular individual will be like me trying to explain it to his refrigerator. But I'm going to try. Grover Cleveland didn't take the Statue of Liberty with him when he left office. That's a big one. That's number one. France wasn't funding global terrorism at the time. Number 2. Number 3, Congress approved it. Number 4, through 10, it wasn't a gift to the president. It was a gift to America, which we still enjoy. If you think you're getting private tours of that plane once this dumb dick leaves office, I have a bridge to sell you. Not for nothing, the estimate to retrofit this fucking palace with guns and flares and shit is $1 billion that we are going to pay. The American taxpayer will pay $1 billion to retrofit this plane to make it Air Force One, and then he's going to take it with him, that $1 billion that we paid for. Do you get it? Probably not, which sucks. I wish you would.
There's a company out there which presents some of the starkest conflicts of interest in the history of the American presidency. It's called World Liberty Financial. Let's check out their website. At the top, it's Donald Trump, who's identified as chief crypto advocate, his 3 sons, Eric, Don Jr., and Barron. And then beneath them, you've got these guys, Zach Folkman and Chase Hero. They're otherwise known for selling everything from colon cleanses to get-rich-quick classes. Now, they're offering a new type of cryptocurrency.
The World Liberty Financial token sale is now live.
That, when bought and sold, directly benefits the Trump family's bottom line. From the start, Trump has been totally central to the pitch, called the gold paper. Keep scrolling, 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 and then finally, the fine print in italics. I'll read this line aloud. World Liberty Financial agrees that DT Marks DeFi LLC, which is the business entity associated with the Trumps, will receive 22.5 billion WLFI tokens, so that's a kind of stash of that signature cryptocurrency, and a right to receive 75% of the net protocol revenues. Basically, sales of this token result in large payments to the Trump family. Anybody, especially people overseas, can buy this coin. It's an easy way to at least try to curry favor with the Trumps. That, critics have pointed out, is a major ethical issue. Let's take the example of Justin Sun. He's a Chinese billionaire who founded Tron, one of the biggest crypto operations in the world. You may remember him as the guy who spent $6.2 million at an art auction to buy a banana duct taped to a wall. In 2023, the SEC sued him, arguing that he had taken steps to illegally inflate the value of his cryptocurrency. Then, last fall, after Trump won the election, Sun announced that he was going to buy $30 million worth of the World Liberty Financial coin. A few weeks later, he upped that investment to $75 million. When Trump took over as president, the SEC moved to suspend the lawsuit. It's not illegal to do any of this. Historically, presidents have taken steps to kind of insulate themselves from these conflicts of interest. But obviously, that's been a kind of signature of the Trump presidency dating back to the first term. Even by the standards of the Trump family, this conflict of interest involves orders of magnitude more money, and it's created even more direct ways for people around the world to financially benefit the Trump family.
I want to take a moment to address what's going on in Los Angeles right now. Let's be clear. Trump's deployment of the National Guard and Marines in California is not about the protests. It is not about ICE, and it's really not about immigration. It's about using extremely dubious legal authority to expand his never-ending grasp for more power and his effort to move this country toward authoritarianism. This is a president, as you all know, who has usurped the constitutional responsibilities of Congress. He has threatened to impeach judges who rule against his policies. He has and is suing media for coverage that criticizes him. He has extorted money from law firms that have represented his opponents, and he is withholding funds from universities for teaching courses he doesn't like. In terms of what's happening in Los Angeles, let us understand that in our federalist form of government, local, state, federal, it is the governor of a state who deploys the National Guard, not the President of the United States. Trump's argument for his deployment of the troops is absurd and laughable. Does anyone really believe that we are in the midst of a foreign invasion or a rebellion against the United States? That, believe it or not, is his legal argument. Let's take stock of what Trump has done here. He has conducted massive illegal raids. He has provoked a counter response, and then he has called in the troops. That is how an authoritarian rules. I
promised 4 years ago at the Republican convention, I'm going to restore law and order
and
in
I
this
have,
country.
except in Democrat-run cities. Look, we have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that. Even in a Portland case, we can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
I promised 4 years ago at the
California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. It will keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts.
Father David here. One of the most frequent comments I get from Trump supporters is, "Shut up, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about." And I make this video today to ask you, Trump supporters who make comments like that, to engage with the ideas and come up with your own responses as to why you believe what you believe, rather than calling names. Because are you okay with billionaires overseeing federal agencies that are investigating those same billionaires? And if you are, tell us why that's cool. Are you all right with foreign rich people sending millions of dollars directly into Donald Trump's pockets through this Dogecoin meme and other ways? And if you are, tell us why that's a good idea. Are you all right with deporting 500,000 people who are here quite legally back to countries that are known for torture, violence, and all kinds of horrors simply because Trump can do that? And if you're fine with that, tell us why. Are you all right with imposing tariffs on our closest allies, but not on Vladimir Putin? And if you are, give us an explanation. And be sure that every explanation you give will work for both parties, so that the next time there's a president of the other party in power, you're going to be all right with these same ways of being.
You said you would have this war settled in 24 hours.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long. Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. It can be negotiated, I think, within 24 hours. Guarantee that this war will end immediately. Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic.
Yeah, I'm so ignorant. It's only been 20 plus women over 4 plus decades that have accused him of sexual assault, including his first wife. And then there was the whole thing on Entertainment Tonight where he talked about grabbing women by the pussy without their consent. And then there was the portion of Howard Stern when he went on and bragged about how he watched teenage girls get undressed at Miss Teen USA because he owned the pageant. And then he was found liable in a court of law for sexually assaulting Jean Carroll. Yeah, I'm the ignorant one. You guys are fucking stupid as shit. How are you this gullible? I got a bridge to sell you, for real.
Why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? And he looks at me, stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're going to conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the terminal, the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy now. He was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? Like, I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
I was hauled up by the Nazis. And for no other reason, I was picked up and separated from my family, who was exterminated in Auschwitz. And I am a survivor of Auschwitz and Dachau. I spent 5.5 years in concentration camp. I spent 5.5 years in concentration camp for one reason and one reason only. Because we picked on people. And you as the sheriff, who we elected as sheriff of this county. We did not elect you as sheriff of Washington, D.C. It's about time you serve the people here. And when this gentleman stands up there and he says he doesn't go after any people, he should read today's beat. Because in today's beat, the Supreme Court Justice of State of California objected to ICE coming in and taking people away from the courts. Don't tell me that this is a lie. You stand up here, Mr. Jones, don't forget, history is not on your side.
I'm a Naval Academy graduate. I'm deeply proud of my alma mater, and I'm even more proud that some of my children want to step up and serve as well. It's where I learned leadership. It's where I swore my first oath to the Constitution of the United States. But right now, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted by how Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are using our service academies and the Department of Defense to push their white Christian nationalist agenda. He's taken I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou off the library shelves, but left 2 copies of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf in the library. Just consider that for a minute. Midshipmen can now read the anti-Semitic manifesto of one of history's most evil men, but God forbid they read the autobiography of a black woman recounting her lived experience. Hegseth's...
Maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense. Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard to defend the Capitol on January 6th?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents who deserve to be defended in the execution of their jobs.
But I think it's important to know whether you think it was also important to have the National Guard defending the United States Capitol when there were violent protesters here on the president's behalf, to make sure that folks know that you care about protest, whether it's against the president or on behalf of the president.
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard when that happened and was initially ordered to go guard the inauguration of Joe Biden. But because of the politicization of the Biden administration, my orders were revoked. And ultimately, because of the politics that were being played inside the Defense Department by the previous administration.
But do you support the decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend
I
the
support
Capitol?
the decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you do not support the decision.
Support
you do not
for the
support
National
the
Guard
decision
in
to send the
advance
National
and was
Guard here
denied.
to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters.
How long were you a service member for? 2 years. I was drafted.
You're drafted.
1969. Just got married.
So how do you feel about a draft dodger throwing himself a $45 million military birthday parade?
No, the guy is an absolute fucking idiot.
No, I can't even tell you how angry that makes me feel.
I think it's a disgrace.
It's completely unnecessary.
Would you rather see that money put into the VA?
Yeah, absolutely. And also TRICARE treats bone spurs. So
Trump dodged Vietnam. He disrespected John McCain, who was a real actual veteran who served his country honorably, and even afterwards. So the fact that he would take this and use it as some kind of military prop, like he's want to be a dictator, because that's what dictators do.
Mr. Perry just mocked us for referring to Donald Trump as a dictator, so let's run through the list. Donald Trump has, since he was inaugurated, pardoned violent January 6 insurrectionists. Dictator. Defied Supreme Court orders and attacked the judiciary. Dictator. Unilaterally abolished congressionally chartered federal agencies. Dictator. Attacked the free press. Sounds like a dictator. Kidnapped people off of the streets and deported them to foreign prisons without due process. Sounds like a dictator. Defunded higher education. Dictator. Threatened law firms and the legal profession. Dictator. This weekend, he is spending tens of millions of dollars to host a massive military parade for his birthday. Is this North Korea? On top of all of that, our twice impeached president with a 34-count convicted felony president who is not a king has deployed the active duty military in American cities, and he has spent $134 million to do so. He has their guns trained on American citizens without the consent of local authorities or the state's governor to purposefully generate chaos and provoke a reaction. Meanwhile, we have Republicans on this side of the aisle asking governors of states about bathrooms. This is the most dystopian, horrific episode of Black Mirror that I have ever seen.
With the ICE agents. I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years right there. I worked with the Department of Homeland Security. I worked with ICE agents. I worked with Homeland Security's investigations. I have never seen any plainclothes officer wearing a mask. And I asked them, why are you wearing a mask? One person told me, because it's cold. I asked him if he would testify to that under oath, and he walked away and wouldn't respond to me. Another person admitted that they're wearing masks so that they are not caught on video. And my question to them is, if what you are doing is legitimate, is lawful, is totally above board, why do you need to cover your face? Law enforcement officers do not cover their face. And in fact, the Trump administration is cracking down on universities for allowing protesters to wear masks. So apparently it is not okay to wear a mask if you're protesting the government, but it is okay if you are the government to wear masks and in order to shield your face from the public.
I'm against arresting any of the most prominent elected officials in this country. But if you're going to elect a prominent elected official, start with the one with 34 felony convictions. I think there's some difference of opinion here as to what Trump is trying to distract us from. But it's clear that that's what he's doing, and he can create so much inflammation in Los Angeles and then say, oh, well, now there's a riot that I've created. I think what he's trying to distract us from is the most embarrassing big bromance blowout in history, but more importantly, the biggest amount of corruption since the privatization of the Soviet Union. The $400 million plane, the $300 million from Chinese interests into Trump coin, and the $2 billion from Abu Dhabi into his Trump stablecoin. We shouldn't be having this press conference here. We should be having charts showing you the levels of corruption that we've seen in the Trump administration. But
Happy birthday!
I am a fiscal hawk. Many of my Republican colleagues in the House feel the same way. But we didn't get in this situation overnight, Kristen. It took us decades, many decades of Congress's, frankly, mismanagement of the public fisc to get in this situation. And the last 4 years, the Biden administration increased spending dramatically. So it's going to take us a while to get out of it.
I just want to give the speaker the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he just doesn't know history. And in fact, maybe he doesn't even know current events. Because if he did, you would know that actually 20 years ago or so, Congress balanced the budget 4 years in a row. And over the past 8 years, the Trump administration, the first time, passed the largest deficits, the biggest debt, the biggest budgets in history up to that point. Donald Trump's administration and the Republicans in the House of Representatives, and maybe, I don't know, maybe Mike Johnson wasn't paying attention back then, but they increased the national debt more in 4 years than every other Congress and every other president had in the history of the country, cumulatively. When somebody says something that's so misleading, it's very, very important that people know that this budget that Mike Johnson is trying desperately to pass will help increase the federal debt by $20 trillion over the next 10 years. Let me just say that again. Mike Johnson is desperately working to pass a budget that will increase the national debt by $20 trillion over the next 10 years.
Trump says that the average undocumented immigrant is a criminal who doesn't pay taxes, is a drain on our resources, takes American jobs, and overall just hurts the economy. And this is the narrative he uses to try to sell his mass deportation operation to the average American. But how much of this is actually true? We're going to find out right now. Right out of the gate, you have to know that compared to the U.S.-born population, undocumented immigrants are roughly 50% less likely to be arrested for violent crimes. So not a good start for the crime argument. And this chart shows just how wrong Donald Trump is, because this blue line represents the foreign-born population growing from 1980 until today, and these three lines beneath it are crime rates that are going down or staying completely flat. So as you can see, there is no correlation between the foreign-born population going up and crime rates going up. In fact, it's the opposite. Now, this is not to say that no undocumented immigrants commit violent crimes, because some of them do, but it would surprise Republicans to know that 97% of Democrats think that those people who've committed violent crimes should be deported. So we're actually on the same page here about that specific piece of this puzzle. It's pretty much all the rest of it where we don't agree. Now let's talk about the economic impact. First of all, it's very important to note that undocumented immigrants actually do pay taxes to the tune of almost $100 billion per year. So this idea that they're not paying taxes is complete bullshit. And most of the things they're paying taxes into, like Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, they can't access those programs. So they're really just a net benefit to those programs since they're not drawing anything out of them. But the economic story gets even worse for Trump the deeper you look. If we were to give a path to citizenship to all undocumented immigrants who have not committed crimes, we would get $68 billion in additional state and local tax revenue, $116 billion in federal tax revenue, and $1.4 trillion in GDP growth over the next 10 years. And in direct contrast with that, if we were to go Trump's route and just deport everybody, we would have major economic problems. We would see a significant drop in labor force. We would also see a significant drop in the U.S. economy, a $1.6 trillion reduction in GDP, and $400 billion in direct costs to the U.S. government for executing those deportations. The numbers do not lie. This is a bad economic idea across the board. Now, this doesn't mean that everything Trump says about undocumented immigrants is untrue. There are criminal undocumented immigrants, some who don't pay taxes, some who are freeloading off of our system illegally. Those people exist, but they are a tiny fraction of the undocumented immigrant population. And to say we need to deport all of them to solve this tiny problem is a major error. If the Trump administration had focused strictly on those outliers, violent criminals, and people who are scamming the system, most people would be on board. But the reason that we're not on board is because he's not doing that. He's focusing on everybody. And as you see from the evidence, doing that is a mistake. Trump is just trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I think we all can agree that that's usually just not the right approach.
All right, I got a story that is going to make your blood boil. ICE has arrested a woman who has a 9-week-old baby, and she is married to a U.S. Marine. And because the kid is 9 weeks old, her husband is driving the 9-week-old to the detention facility so that she can nurse. And here is the family. Here they are, being ripped apart. Like, what are we doing, folks? How is this keeping us safe? Please tell me, what is the justification for doing something so horrific and so anti-family? Because what the Republicans claim that they are the family values party. How is this helpful? She's married to a U.S. Marine who's volunteering to put his life on the line for us. And we have to have him drive the infant to a detention facility so that they can nurse? What on earth are we doing? The only
Get out.
Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. MAGA stands for firing military veterans and those serving them at the VA, including canceling research on veteran suicide. MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including for disabled children. MAGA is profoundly corrupt, unmistakably anti-democracy, and most importantly, MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. You may have replaced a swastika with a red hat, but that is what it is. I will now engage in the time-honored American tradition of peaceful civil disobedience.
Get the heck. Get out.
Keep on running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves. I'm a
time my mind is still wondering what happened down on Capitol Hill today. At the inauguration, coronation, in the front row, Zuckerberg, Bezos and Musk. Centi-billionaires don't give a shit about us, oh no. Just for clarification. So I cry sometimes when I look at the news and I hear all the lies and wonder what's the use in trying. It's all a little familiar. I see the whole world goose stepping up in line behind a sexual abusing pathological lie, and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on?